My name is Amber Riley, 34 years old, a software engineer living in Reno, Nevada. For over a decade, I've built my life from scratch, from cramped apartments and long nights to finally buying the silver Tesla parked in my driveway. It wasn't just a car. It was proof that I could stand on my own. I never imagined it would become the reason my family turned against me. Dinner at my parents' house looked warm, laughter candles, the smell of roasted chicken. But beneath that calm, I felt something off, a quiet storm waiting to break. Then Mom set her fork down and said softly, "Hailey needs your Tesla just until she gets back on her feet." My stomach tightened. Before I could answer, Dad added, "You can work from anywhere, honey. She needs help right now." Their tone was calm, rehearsed, like this had already been decided without me. I took a slow breath. That car isn't a loan. It's mine. Every hour I worked, every night I didn't sleep, that's what paid for it. The table fell silent. Mom's polite smile vanished. Dad's eyes dropped to his plate. No one defended me. Hailey pushed her chair back, muttering that I only cared about myself, then stormed off. I stayed seated, realizing dinner wasn't a meal anymore. It was a setup, a test of loyalty I never agreed to take. Sometimes the people who preach family first are the first to take what you've earned. Before we go deeper, tell me where you're watching from. It always amazes me how far one family story can travel. Growing up in Reno looked ordinary from the outside: two sisters in a modest suburban home, and parents who grilled in the backyard and smiled in every Christmas card. But inside, everything had its order, and somehow I was always second. My mother Linda often said Hailey had a soft heart. She said it whenever my sister forgot chores or came home late. If I did the same, I was called careless. Hailey could skip homework and still be praised. I could achieve something and be told not to show off. My father George wasn't loud about favoritism, but his silence spoke enough. When Mom defended Hailey's mistakes, he stayed behind his newspaper pretending not to hear. That quietness felt like agreement, as if fairness didn't belong in our house. By middle school, Hailey stopped trying. I started finishing her projects after completing mine. "You're so reliable," Amber Mom would say, patting Hailey's hand instead of mine. "She's different from you. Be patient with her." Patience became my role, and responsibility turned into identity. Hailey's sweetness became her excuse. At 15, I got my first job bagging groceries while Hailey was grounded for sneaking out. I bought my own school supplies from small paychecks. She got new clothes to help her confidence. When I asked why, Mom smiled. "You're stronger, Amber. She's delicate." That word stayed with me. Delicate meant she could fail and still be comforted. I was expected to hold everything together. Each achievement I made built a wall instead of a bridge. When my science project went to the district fair, Mom said, "That's nice, dear, but don't let it change you." When Hailey sang off key at a school event, Mom cried like she'd seen something divine. It wasn't about talent, it was about the image she wanted to protect. By 16, I was tired. I studied after long shifts at the store, trying to earn a future that felt mine. "You don't laugh like you used to," Mom said one night while folding laundry. I didn't answer. Laughter had rules in our house, and I wasn't the one allowed to break them. 2 years later, a letter arrived, a full scholarship out of state. I still remember standing at the table saying, "I got in." Mom's fork froze midair. Dad blinked. Hailey gave a small smile. "Out of state?" Mom asked. "You'll forget about us." "I won't," I said. She sighed. "Just don't forget where you came from." That was her way of saying, "Don't change too much." That night, I packed quietly. Leaving wasn't rebellion, it was survival. While I built a life elsewhere, Hailey stayed. Mom's calls were always the same. "Your sister's figuring things out. She's looking for work. She's just tired." The words changed, but the story didn't. When I came home after graduation, everything looked frozen. Hailey slept late. Mom wiped the same spotless counters, and Dad mowed the same patch of lawn. The air in that house never moved. That's when I finally understood distance isn't made by miles, but by imbalance. I had spent years believing hard work could buy love, but in that house, love belonged to whoever needed it most, not to whoever gave the most. Hailey never had to ask for affection. I stopped asking long ago. Sometimes distance doesn't come from miles, it comes from silence. And that silence hit hardest the morning I opened that email. The email said, "We appreciate your contribution." That's how a chapter ends in tech. I stared at the words until they blurred. No meeting, no handshake, no closure. Just one sentence that erased years of work. By noon, half the engineering team was gone. The office felt hollow, chairs left askew, monitors still glowing. My name was somewhere on that list, an entry in a spreadsheet marking who stayed and who didn't. I packed slowly, my coffee mug, a small cactus, and a photo of me standing beside the Tesla I'd bought last year. That car had once symbolized success. Now it looked like a bill waiting to break me. I walked out without looking back. The drive home was long and soundless. Reno's skyline passed like static. I parked outside my apartment and sat behind the wheel until the sun sank behind the mountains. When I finally went inside, I opened my laptop again, hoping for a mistake. There wasn't one, only an automated message reminding me to return my badge. A week later, I found a converted garage on the outskirts of town. The walls smelled faintly of oil and dust, the floor tilted slightly to one side. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I set up a folding table, plugged in my aging laptop, and told myself this was temporary. Bills piled up. I stopped buying coffee, stopped eating out, started counting every coin before groceries. Life became a series of numbers: rent, gas, data plan. I built spreadsheets as if math could hold me together. At night, the hum of the fridge was my only company. Then one afternoon, my closest friend Jordan, someone I'd known since college, showed up with a paper bag full of groceries. She didn't knock, just walked in and looked around. "You're living like a monk," she said, placing cans on the counter. I tried to laugh, but it came out tired. "I'll get back on track soon." Jordan leaned against the sink. "Maybe don't rush. Rest for a few weeks. Then start again." "Rest doesn't pay rent," I said. "Neither does panic," she replied. Her voice was calm but firm. She stayed for an hour telling me stories about her chaotic office and how everyone secretly admired my courage for stepping away even if I hadn't chosen to. When she left, the silence didn't feel quite so sharp. Over the next few weeks, I tried freelancing, small app fixes, code audits, anything that might pay. Most clients vanished after the first email. Others sent polite rejections that all sounded the same. We've decided to move forward with another candidate chipped away at what little confidence I had left. I told myself to treat it like debugging a problem, to isolate and fix, but I wasn't repairing code anymore. I was trying to repair myself. By the end of the second month, I had less than $400 left. My fridge held a half-empty carton of milk and some eggs. My Tesla sat outside like an expensive mistake. I scrolled job boards until my eyes ached, sending out resumes to silence. Some nights I fell asleep on the couch with my laptop still glowing, the cursor blinking like a pulse I couldn't match. That night, after another rejection, I called Grace, my aunt in Denver. She answered on the third ring, her glasses sliding down her nose. "You look exhausted," she said. "Laid off," I nodded. "Then you're free." She smiled. "Free," I repeated. "It feels more like stranded." Grace shook her head. "Freedom always starts that way." I told her about the job hunt, the fear, the shrinking world inside that garage. She listened without interrupting, her silence softer than sympathy. When I ran out of words, she said, "Amber, you don't need approval to rebuild." It was simple, but it hit hard. For years, I'd been working like I needed permission to exist, to prove my worth to bosses, to family, even to myself. Grace's words made me realize how heavy that need had become. Maybe rebuilding wasn't about finding another job. Maybe it was about finding myself without anyone's validation. We talked for another hour about her garden, her favorite coffee shop, the weather in Denver. When the call ended, the silence felt different. I stared at the blinking cursor on my laptop and realized it didn't look like an ending anymore. It looked like the first line of something new. The morning after that call with Grace, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. There was no office to rush to, no boss waiting, no pressure from anyone but myself. Just silence and a blank screen glowing in the dark. I opened my laptop, stretched my fingers, and started typing. I didn't know what I was building, only that I needed to build something that was mine. I relearned everything from scratch: algorithms, APIs, frameworks. I watched endless tutorials, coded through the night, and failed more times than I could count. Each bug felt like a mirror forcing me to confront my limits. Then one night, after hours of frustration, I had an idea. I'd always struggled to find working EV charging stations around Reno, so why not build an app that mapped and rated them in real time? I called it Charge Map. Simple, practical, and something I actually needed. I coded in that cold garage with a space heater humming beside me, living on cheap coffee and determination. When I finally finished a basic version, I shared it on a small developer forum. I expected silence. Instead, 3 days later, an email arrived from a startup in San Jose. They liked what I'd built and wanted to discuss a collaboration. That message changed everything. Within a month, I was consulting remotely, fixing bugs, improving UI, adding features. They paid well and introduced me to investors who believed in my work. A year later, one of them offered seed funding to expand the app. I couldn't stop smiling as I read the email. For the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't need anyone's approval to succeed. I moved out of the garage and into a small co-working space downtown. Bad Wi-Fi, weak coffee, but it felt like freedom. I worked 12-hour days, sometimes more, driven not by fear, but by purpose. ChargeMap grew fast, more users, new features, real revenue. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. One quiet Sunday, I drove to a Tesla dealership. The sales rep handed me the keys to a new model, and as I ran my hand across the steering wheel, I realized this wasn't about luxury, it was about reclaiming my life. I whispered, "You did it," to the reflection in the windshield. I thought that was the end of the story, but good news has a way of traveling faster than you expect. A week later, my phone rang. "Amber, sweetheart. We're so proud of you." My mother's voice rang out, warm, almost too warm. "Your dad and I saw the article about your app. You should come home soon. Everyone misses you." I froze. That word proud felt foreign coming from her. I wanted to believe she meant it. Maybe she did. Or maybe she wanted something else. "Maybe I will," I said softly. That night I drove around Reno with the windows down, the city lights flickering across the dashboard. The same streets that once felt suffocating now felt small. I passed the old garage where it all began, still dark and empty. I pulled over for a moment, breathing in the cold night air, realizing how far I'd come. When I got home, another message waited on my phone from my mother again. "We'll make your favorite dinner. Hailey will be here too." Just reading my sister's name made my stomach tighten. Still, I replied, "Okay. I'll come by next weekend." I didn't know it then, but that one decision to drive back home would turn my quiet victory into the storm I thought I'd already survived. The house looked the same, the people didn't. I parked the Tesla in the same driveway where I used to ride my bike as a kid, but the air felt heavier now. The curtains were new, the garden freshly trimmed, yet everything inside me told me this visit wasn't just about dinner. My mother opened the door before I could knock. "Amber, you look wonderful," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt rehearsed. My father stood behind her, smiling with the kind of politeness people reserve for strangers. And then came Hailey, glowing in her pastel dress, her boyfriend Travis right beside her. He extended a hand. "Heard a lot about you," he said. "Nice car out there. We could use one like that." The words hung in the air like smoke. I smiled politely. "It's been good to me." Inside the dining room looked exactly the same oak table, beige walls, and that framed quote about family first. My mother was setting down plates with the kind of forced enthusiasm that made me uneasy. "We're so happy you're home," she said. "It's been too long." I nodded, taking my seat across from Hailey. She looked up at me with the same shy smile she used when we were kids. Only now there was something practiced behind it. Dinner started quiet. My father asked about work. I kept it simple. "The app's doing well," I said. "We're growing faster than expected." He nodded like he understood but didn't ask more. Travis leaned forward. "Must be nice being your own boss," he said. "Bet that Tesla's a reward." "Something like that," I replied, cutting my food slowly. My mother cleared her throat. "You know Hailey's been applying for jobs lately, marketing, design, even admin. She just needs something stable to get started." She looked at me then, at the window where the Tesla gleamed faintly under the porch light. She could really use a reliable car for interviews. Just for a while. I set my fork down. "Mom, I worked hard for that car. It's not just a vehicle, it's part of my business." "Of course," she said, smiling thinly. "Just a loan. Family helps family." My father added, "We share everything in this family, right?" The tone wasn't cruel, but it carried weight like an expectation disguised as love. I felt my pulse rise, the air growing dense. I took a breath. "I'm sorry, but no. The car stays with me." For a second no one spoke. Then Hailey's eyes filled with tears. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "I knew it," she said, voice trembling. "You've changed. You think you're better than us now?" She stormed out before anyone could stop her. My mother sighed dramatically. "Amber, was that necessary? You could have been kinder. She's sensitive." "I wasn't unkind," I said, keeping my tone steady. "I just said no." "You've become cold?" my father muttered, shaking his head. "Success shouldn't make you selfish." The silence that followed was thick. My appetite vanished. I glanced toward the hallway, hearing faint sobs from Hailey's room. Part of me wanted to go after her, but another part, the part that had been guilted for years, knew that would mean surrendering. My mother broke the quiet. "You know this could have been such a lovely evening, but you always find a way to make things about you." I stood up, pushing the chair back carefully. "I came here to visit, not to be tested." My voice was calm, even when my hands weren't. "I love you both, but I won't apologize for working hard, and I won't lend something that took me years to earn." My father didn't look at me. My mother folded her napkin slowly. "Dinner's over then," she said. As I walked to the door, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. The same face, the same house, but I wasn't the same person. Outside, the air was cold and still. I got into my car, started the engine, and sat there for a while, watching the porch light flicker. Through the window, I saw shadows moving inside the same dance of disappointment and guilt that had defined my family for years. Only this time, I wasn't part of it. By sunrise, the war had gone online. My phone buzzed non-stop, the screen lighting up like an alarm. At first, I thought it was work, another email from the San Jose team. But the first notification froze me in place. Hailey Henderson posted a new photo. The caption read, "Some people value cars more than family." Under it were 3 pictures: the dinner table from last night, my empty seat, and the Tesla parked in front of my parents' house. My mother had liked the post. My father hadn't reacted, but that silence said enough. Within an hour, comments piled up. "Poor Hailey, she deserves better. Money changes people. That's why I'll never trust family with success." I scrolled through each one, feeling my stomach twist tighter. Even neighbors I barely remembered were chiming in. Old classmates, family friends, all siding with Hailey, all painting me as the selfish sister who cared more about metal and money than love. For a moment, I almost replied. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to type a defense, an explanation, anything. But then I stopped. I'd seen enough digital witch hunts to know how this would end. I closed the app, turned off notifications, and sat in silence. The world outside was calm, the irony of it burned. I opened my laptop instead. Years in tech had taught me one thing: nothing online truly disappears. I began saving everything: screenshots of posts, comments, timestamps, even private messages Hailey had sent the night before. In one, she'd written, "You'll regret making me look small." It wasn't just anger anymore. It was intent. By noon, the story had spread beyond her friends. A local Facebook group titled Reno Voices picked it up. Someone had reposted Hailey's post with a headline, "Local startup founder refuses to help her struggling sister." That one went viral. My name wasn't mentioned, but the context was obvious. My inbox filled with vague messages from acquaintances pretending to check in. I didn't answer any of them. Then came the TikToks. Hailey sitting in her bedroom, eyes red but camera perfectly framed, saying softly, "It's hard when the person you looked up to the most forgets what family means." She didn't say my name, but the video cut to a blurred image of a Tesla with the same color and license plate layout as mine. Her voice cracked at the end. The comment section overflowed with sympathy. "You deserve better. She sounds toxic. Cut her off." I watched it once, then twice. My pulse stayed steady. I'd expected anger. Instead, I felt something colder: clarity. This wasn't misunderstanding anymore. It was strategy. Hailey wasn't venting. She was performing. By afternoon, the ripple reached where it shouldn't have. My work email pinged with a subject line that made my heart sink. "Clarification requested." It was from Daniel Lee, the communications director of one of my startup's partner companies. The message was short. "Amber, we came across a few posts circulating online that seem to reference you. We value our relationship but wanted to confirm, are these stories about your family true?" My hands trembled slightly as I read it again. This was no longer about pride or family arguments. It was professional, reputational. In my world, perception could build or destroy in hours. I stared at the email, wondering how to respond without feeding the fire. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the quiet street. The same sunlit calm as always, but now every shadow felt like a whisper. Hailey had turned a private argument into a public spectacle, and my parents, whether by choice or cowardice, had let it happen. My mother's heart emoji on that post replayed in my mind, looping like a wound that refused to close. I sat back down, typed a simple reply: "Daniel, thank you for reaching out. I can confirm that the content circulating online is a misrepresentation and will be addressed appropriately. Appreciate your understanding." Then I hit send. My voice might have been silent online, but I wasn't powerless. That night, I watched the numbers rise, Hailey's post climbing past 10,000 likes. Each reaction was a little dagger of validation for her narrative. Still, I stayed quiet. Words could wait, screenshots couldn't. And in that waiting, something shifted inside me, not resignation, but resolve. This wasn't about a car anymore. It wasn't even about family. It was about reclaiming my name from people who thought they could define it. There's a difference between staying silent and staying weak. I realized that the moment my inbox filled with strangers telling me who I was. For days, I had watched my name twisted into something unrecognizable, a villain in a story I didn't write. So one night, after rereading every lie for the last time, I opened a blank post. The cursor blinked, waiting. My fingers didn't shake this time. "My name is Amber Riley," I typed. And this is what really happened. The post wasn't angry. It wasn't defensive. It was measured, factual, almost clinical. I wrote about the dinner, about the conversation where my parents asked me to hand over my car to my sister. I didn't embellish or accuse. I just told the truth. Then I attached a single file, a short audio clip. It was a recording from that night, captured automatically by my smartwatch. In the recording, my mother's voice said, "You have 2 cars, you can give one to Hailey." My father added, We share everything in this family. And then my voice, steady, tired, answered no. Not this time. That was it. No shouting, no insults. Just a moment of manipulation disguised as love. I ended the post with one line: "Boundaries are not betrayal." Then I hit publish. I didn't check the screen again until morning. When I did, the numbers were staggering. The tide had turned overnight. Thousands of comments flooded in, this time, not with hate, but with outrage at what had been done to me. Good for you, Amber. Families like this drain you dry. You owe them nothing. People shared their own stories. Brothers, sisters, parents, who had used guilt as a weapon. My quiet truth had opened a wound in thousands of strangers. Hailey deleted her post before noon, but the internet doesn't forget. Screenshots, duets, and reaction videos had already spread. Someone even found Travis's TikTok account. In one of his older videos, he was laughing behind the camera, the same laugh from the clip where my Tesla had been filmed without permission. Within hours, viewers connected the dots. By evening, the backlash found them. Travis's employer, a small Reno marketing firm, released a statement confirming his termination, citing conduct unbecoming of company values. Hailey's name trended next. A recruiter anonymously posted that she had withdrawn Hailey's pending interview due to reputational concerns. At first, I didn't celebrate. I just sat there numb. It wasn't satisfaction, it was gravity. Truth doesn't heal. It balances. The same crowd that once threw stones was now throwing apologies, but none of them mattered. The damage had already been done. My parents stayed silent. My mother turned off her comments after people flooded her page asking how she could support what Hailey did. My father's church friends quietly unfollowed him. The words family unity, which had once decorated their Christmas cards, now sounded hollow. That evening, my phone rang. The name Grace Henderson appeared on the screen, Aunt Grace. Her voice was calm, the way only time and wisdom could make it. "You handled it right," she said. "The truth always lands even when it falls hard." I closed my eyes, the tension in my shoulders easing for the first time in weeks. After we hung up, I opened my laptop again. My post had reached over 2 million views, but I didn't read the comments anymore. I turned off notifications, shut the screen, and looked outside. The sun was setting over Reno, casting long streaks of light across the street. In that glow, I finally felt free, not because people believed me, but because I no longer needed them to. 6 months later, Reno finally felt quiet. Not because the city had changed, but because I had. I was back in San Jose, living in a small apartment above a co-working studio, surrounded by cables, sketches, and half-built prototypes of the next version of my app. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, simple, calm, and honest. The kind of peace that doesn't need to prove itself. I hadn't spoken to my parents, Hailey or Travis, since the day everything went public. The silence wasn't bitter. It was necessary. My phone still held their numbers, but my mind had deleted the expectation that they would ever understand. Every now and then, I'd scroll past an old family photo and feel a twinge of something, nostalgia maybe, but it faded before it could hurt. One afternoon, I came home to find a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but I knew the handwriting instantly, my mother's. The envelope was heavy, as if regret could add weight. I sat on the edge of my desk staring at it for a long time before sliding a finger under the seal. Inside was a single page. "Amber, we didn't realize what we were doing until it was too late. I'm sorry for the pain we caused. Please forgive us. Love, Mom." I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. I didn't tear it, didn't burn it, didn't even cry. I just put it in a drawer and closed it. Some doors don't slam, they close quietly and stay that way. A few weeks later, my assistant forwarded me a link from a local Reno news site. The headline read, "Couple faces civil lawsuit over online defamation and fraud." The article mentioned Hailey Henderson and Travis Miller by name. Apparently, several companies had accused them of manipulating online content for personal gain. It wasn't revenge, it was consequence. I didn't smile, but I exhaled. The universe has its own way of teaching balance. Work filled my days again. My app had expanded into a green tech partnership helping electric vehicle owners locate sustainable charging options across the West Coast. Every line of code felt like a small step towards something cleaner, quieter, kinder than the chaos I'd come from. One Friday evening, I packed a small bag, grabbed my keys, and decided to drive. The Tesla hummed to life, its screen glowing softly in the dim light. I headed east through the Nevada desert toward the long horizon. The sun dipped low, painting everything gold. The air shimmered with heat, and for the first time in months, I let myself breathe, without thinking. In the rearview mirror, the world I'd left behind looked smaller by the mile. Ahead, the road stretched open, empty, endless, forgiving. I thought about all the fights I'd tried to win, all the explanations I'd given to people who'd already decided not to listen. Then I understood not every war needs a victor. Some battles end when you stop showing up. That night, under a sky filled with quiet stars, I parked the car, stepped out, and stood beside it. The reflection of the sunset still burned across the glass. I smiled not out of triumph, but release. You can love your family but still choose peace over pain. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Thank you for staying till the end. Have you ever had to walk away from family for your sanity? Tell me below, I read every story.